saw sailfish.
You don't have a forum, but we're going to continue discussing it. Sure.
Cut two now, because we're going back in November. November is our normal timeline. This was thrown in there because we were supposed to go to Nova Scotia
And I need.
with my cousin and his wife, and his wife got
Oh, do you
really
want this
about
back
being
there
out
now?
of the country in case
I'll just
COVID
pull it out
comes.
on my
This was 10
computer.
months ago when we were trying to plan the trip. So it's like, no, we get it. So
Okay, we're gonna start the discussion, I guess, since we don't have a quorum at this time, it's not officially a meeting yet. Once Hyde does come, then we can officially start the meeting portion, but we will just start the presentations and go with it.
The public can listen in, right? We've got our,
Yep.
all of our info is on. People want to join.
Yes. Okay. We can't do any changes or additions.
True. There is no agenda.
There is no agenda, so Pat, would you like to discuss?
sure.
Yes, absolutely. As long as the public can hear and participate, that's what's important.
Great. As I think everybody knows, the staffing levels of most facilities around the area or any business has been tough. BSU had a job fair back August 25th. And you hear me talk about the team all the time. And one of the things that impresses me is just the quality of knock on wood, the people that we get, the culture that we try to provide. So if you look at Megan Maloff is the lady in the back. She's our HR assistant. But then we had a number of employees who volunteered to go on our behalf and represent the company and try to get more of these college kids, involved with Boise Center. And what's great is the gentleman on the right, Ben, he actually graduated from BSU last spring. He's a physical therapy, and there's something else tagged onto that that's more than just PT. But anyway, he's just been an outstanding server for us. He's actually one of our leads, our captains in the banquet area. And then Max next to him. Max is a junior this year. Gracie next door to Max there. She graduated high school last year and wise beyond her years for sure. And then we've got Anthony Manzanares, who's one of our operations managers. And again, they all volunteered to be there. And so we had cornhole and some other games going, but they were our recruiters and they volunteered. They wanted to go and say how great of a place it is to work. So we had 52 students sign up as interested to work with us. And I'm really proud to say we're over 200 now. I think we're pushing 210. And it wasn't too long ago, we were at 180. So we've been very fortunate. Festival of Trees, we committed to 1,000 for the dinner at the gala, and we're doing it all internally. So it's, I'm excited. We're getting back to, we're starting to push towards that goal of 240 that we had prior to COVID. So, but I love to highlight the team when they really want to represent us, and because they like what we do and they like our culture. So again, key focus is on recruitment. Continuing, we're adding new bookings as they fit within our staffing parameters. So again, fortunately, we're getting to the staffing levels that, again, as these inquiries are coming in, we're able to start filling in a little bit. We've had a couple of small meetings that we've been able to fill in now, and with Christmas parties on the horizon, a lot of inquiries. So the budget and marketing plan preparation obviously is underway, as evidence through the meeting that we just had. The marketing plan will be presented at the October meeting as well. So you'll have that in the budgets to go together. Connect Pacific Northwest was in Boise this week. This is really key because Connect has to be invited, or they don't go somewhere where they're not invited. And there's some sponsorships and things locally that have to be done. Some work by the chamber, the CVB, our sales team. There are a couple of local meeting planners. There's a woman who has a meeting planning company out of Meridian. She does a lot, obviously, outside the area, but she also is part of Connect and was very helpful in getting the meeting here. There were 50 meeting planners and about 65 suppliers. And as it turns out, they all love Boise. They stayed mostly, I think, in the Grove Hotel, but their meetings were here. But then they were out touring around the area. They were doing all kinds of things. So, but without exception, I didn't hear anything but positive comments. Sorry, I thought it might be high. So, and these meeting planners are key. The one complaint that, I guess the only, wasn't even a complaint, one of the concerns that one of the meeting planners I was talking to expressed was the number of hotels that she'd have to use if she were to bring a group here of 500, 600, 700 people, of which she has apparently several that she works with. It wasn't that she wouldn't bring them here, but she said it's definitely a concern having to manage that many hotels. But otherwise, the weather was perfect. Without exception, everybody loved it here. So proud of, the CV Carrie's team, our team. They were with them every step of the way at every event. So we also had a table. It was a tabletop, sort of a speed dating type meeting. Kristen's probably pretty familiar with those where you get a few minutes with each meeting planner and by appointment. So visitor center stats, total August visitors were 170. Again, good showing, higher than pardon me, previous month. More international travelers, which is good to see. Czech Republic. I'm not sure I've seen that one up there before. So the numbers continue to look very positive. If Hi is able to join us, we'll go back to this a little bit on how much we have in and how much we have going out. So, but we're doing our best to control expenses. Capital costs are coming in where we anticipated them to be. And in fact, I wouldn't be surprised if we again give some money back to the district on our capital side this year. Utilization again continues to be positive. Coming in to the fourth quarter, we're going to be busy. It's we probably have 2 dark days in October. One's a Sunday and one's Halloween. September is packed, and November, I think we have 1 dark day in November. So again, our demand is there, and the attendance level should come right into where we anticipate. So, guest satisfaction score again. I have to give full credit to the team. The comments that are coming in are exceptional, and a couple of the concerns that we get have been pretty easy to mitigate. So again, I'm very pleased with where the team is and where we are year to date. Hotel stats. Again, rates, occupancy, demand continue to be great. The ADR, it's the second highest. The highest was June at 162. In fact, this is for July's numbers, but the August STAR report just came in. And again, we've talked about June, July being down in demand. But in August, the demand went up again. I was really prepared for even, this month and next month to talk about how demand had, was continuing to drop a little bit because West Coast is open, Canada's open, Mexico's open, Europe's open. Which is what we think we saw in June and July, but all of a sudden August came back. And I think because we had a couple of big groups in August, I honestly think that helped August. But anyway, for this month, rates were down a bit, but again, we continue to break records on the room tax revenues. So rates continued, even though down a little bit, continue to be up. The rate in August, this was 153. The rate in August is actually 156. You'll hear more about that next month, but demand was up 2,000 room nights and hotel room revenue was up $2 million year on year. So there was a bounce back from the dip here. You'll see that reverse next month. Same thing here on the demand side. Still very, very strong. So we continue to see records. It's always ironic when we talk about some of these numbers being down, yet we're still setting records on the room tax revenue side. So as we talked about in the budget meeting, 23 is already looking exceptionally strong. 24 same way. So some of the decisions we start making, as we discussed, probably the 25, 26 timeline is when you're going to see some results of that.
Hi, I just sent him the link, so let me know if he joined. Okay. Sorry.
No, you're good. We've talked about this before too, that, while we'd love to see more citywide, conventions, the availability of hotel rooms with the number of hotels meeting planners would prefer to use, don't coincide. So meeting planners have to use multiple hotels, which is a challenge to bring in 800, 900, 1,000 rooms. So we're going to continue to see that mid-size convention be really where the most of the book here. We're hopefully going to get a few more of the big ones, but I don't see that happening much with the demand on the hotels from the leisure and transient side.
Madam Chair and board members, we had record, as Pat indicated, we had record tax revenues for August and the second highest on record. The center revenues are a record for August as well, and we're 77% over budget. And we'll talk about that a little later. Labor challenges continue with recruitment, and the retention of staff is compounded by increasing costs. Although we are starting to see the labor costs flatten out a little bit, and our gross margin went up this month from prior months, so we're seeing a little bit of reversal on that. And the increased revenues improve our gross profit and our gross margin as we break over our fixed costs and our variable costs. And then our losses remain less than the budget by $2.9 million. And that's on a combined basis. So you can see here the Boise Center's losses are 1.3 million less than budget. The district is 1.6 million ahead of budget, and the aquatics is a -3, and that's probably rounding. And then that's so combined, we're 2.9 million better than budget. Here we've got room tax. We beat our budget by about $300,000. 8 of the 9 months are records for the period. Year to date we're 1.7 million above budget. More than likely, based on the STAR report, we will hit our annual budget number at the end of September. And so we can anticipate next couple months will be over budget, and our SG&A expenses remain.
Hello?
Hello, hi,
Who's that?
it's Pat.
Hello, Pat.
How are you, sir?
I'm good. So what's happening? Is there a quorum now or not?
There
Yes,
will be, so
yeah.
now you may call the meeting to order.
Hi, I'm going to call the meeting to order. We'll do roll call. Okay. Call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Ms. Mucko,
Here.
Mr. Olson, Mr. Walker, Mr. Clock,
Here,
Mr. Erkins.
Here.
Great. Any changes or additions to the agenda?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yes, we do. Would like to move 5D up, and we'll combine it with C, with 4C. C and present it. And also, item C says preliminary budget 2024, and it should be 23.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve those changes to the agenda?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Aye. Are you there? I think you might be on mute. Hi. Can I second it?
You can second it.
What are we doing?
Okay.
There is.
I can hardly, I can,
Hi, sorry. We're just voting on a few changes to the agenda.
oh, fine.
All those in favor?
Hi,
Aye. Thanks, Hi. With that, I entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the meeting dated August 24th.
Move to approve the minutes.
Do I have a second?
second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Hi,
Great, minutes are approved. Monthly activity financial report, we're kind of talked a lot about it, but I know you might want to revisit.
Do you want me to keep
Hey,
going?
hi.
Or do you want-
Yeah.
yeah,
I'll do a quick recap of the first few slides that you've already gotten, but I mean, basically, we're having, we continue to have a good year. Occupancy and demand on the facility is strong. We've got a great fourth quarter ahead of us. It's very busy. In fact, if you want to come in and help dish up, we'll take you. The market trends right now for, on the sales side, we're looking into the 60s again for conventions. Next year, we're already at 43, I think, for 24. And I'll let Anne Marie talk about the financial side. We're about halfway through the financial slides.
We were just talking about tax revenues high, so we've had record high ADR occupancy. That probably more than likely will give us a great tax revenue month for August, which should push us up over our budget. So the remaining 2 months, which would be October, November, would be the excess over budget for us for the year. So the tax revenues are holding strong and looking good.
And we'll take bets on it, what the board thinks the final number will be. It's going to be over 9 million.
Easily.
for the month,
So what?
9 million for what? The next,
Tax revenues,
what period?
Yeah, room tax revenues high should hit 9 million for the first time ever.
Wow,
the financial highlights, as we said, the revenues were 77% higher than forecast. August is normally kind of the dog days of August and not normally a real strong month for us. This month, it was a very strong month, which helped our gross margin rebound, and it came in over budget. We continue to have overtime in AV and then our custodial, kitchen and operations, and maintaining our SG&A expenses below budgets. And our losses are $346,000 less than budget.
I'll jump in real quick. We're currently about, I'm going to say 300,000 over budget for the year. It kind of goes, 1 month has gone up, 1 month it comes back down, but the good news is we're, again, this year's budget was a record budget for the Center for Operations, and it's going to come very, very close. So I'm proud of the facility there. The other, and the AV portion, we're just short of $1 million in AV rental, and we've never ever even come close to that. This year, we'll probably do 1.1 million at least in AV revenue, and I think we have 1.2 budgeted next year. So the investment that the board has allowed us to make in audiovisual equipment and the support that you've given, it has an ROI. And the AV team we have is phenomenal, and they're aggressive and they know what they're doing. And but they're paying for it a little bit. They're working a lot. Got some OT or some overtime going. But the guests love our AV department and they love the equipment we've got. So again, thanks for letting us buy it.
So as Pat said, we're 329,000 over budget year to date. Our room night discounts are under budget due to lower room nights and higher local attendance. Our AV revenues, like I said, 344,000 over budget. Our labor came in, year to date is under budget despite overtime and inflation adjustments due to the higher revenues that in July and August, which helped. Again, our net losses are 1.3 million below budget, and then our capital transfers are significantly below budget right now too, due to the timing. And then we've had canceled some projects that have been canceled, and then some that have been postponed to next year. So as Pat indicated, probably won't use all of the $1.6 million for capital this year. And same way with the Boise Center, barring any significant events, Black Swan events, 2022 is likely to hit budget. We're only right now about 200,000 short of budget. And as we said, this is based on forecasts, and our forecasts tend to run light. So we're going to hit budget, and who knows at this point what the number will be on the revenues for the Boise Center. Just like Pat said, we have a good strong quarter coming up.
It depends on, again, the short-term bookings as they come in. If we, based on our staffing opportunities, we're strategically taking some of these newer events. So
Square foot utilization was up, obviously, for August, but you can see when we talk about how July and August are typically kind of our dog days, that yellow is 2020, the green was 21, and you can, and then the black is our forecast or actual, and so you can see that we're running higher than we did in 20, and actually even for 21 in July. So you can see that we're continuing to run. If you look at that black line, you can see September, October, and November, it's just going up, up, and up. The Aquatic Center, we received our payment. Thank you very much, guys. We had put in the budget expecting that the construction will be done and that we would move into the next phase of the rent payment, which we have not. So we're now below budget of 21,000 on our rent. We paid 100% of the construction costs in August. ICA is paying for the cost overruns related to the equipment. We also have another payment request that I have not, that I'll get to probably early next week to get processed. We transferred $500,000 from the district for building costs. Our total construction cost funded is 2.7 million. Total aquatics fixed assets is now at 5.2 million, and we have 1.8 million remaining to be dispersed of the total $7 million commitment. And this is the investment change that we had talked about in the agenda. Currently, Seattle Northwest is our investment advisor and Fidelity is our custodian. So you have one organization that holds the assets, and then you have another organization that advises you on how to manage it. According to our investment policy that we approved in October of 2011, it has to be approved by the board to change investment advisors. We went out, we did an RFP. Through that process, we selected Clearwater Advisors as our investment advisor. So this is a request to change from Seattle Northwest to Clearwater Advisors. And then our custodian, they don't work well with Fidelity. Their systems don't mesh. And so they recommended that we would switch to Charles Schwab. And so this is a request to change, move our investments from Fidelity over to Charles Schwab. Schwab is the custodian. Let's see, do you have the resolution?
You wanna do that now?
Yes.
Madam Chair, Anne Marie. Hello,
Yes.
Yes. Go ahead, Hi.
Anne Marie. Yeah, Anne Marie, could you back up for a little bit? I had trouble hearing you when you were talking about the aquatic center.
Oh, yes.
How much are we spending now?
We have 1.8 million remaining to be dispersed of the $7 million commitment.
And how far along are we?
Completion is estimated to be March. The building is up. In fact, all the aquatics guys are here for a presentation when we get done with this, so they can update you a lot better than I can, but building is up. They've dug the holes for the pools, and more than that. So again, they're gonna give a presentation, Hi. But
Hi.
opening date is slated for March.
All right. Thanks.
Yep. Back to investment advisor.
So let's read this certificate of resolutions of the Board of Directors of the Great Boise Auditorium District. We, the undersigned, do certify that we are the chair of the Board of Directors and the executive director for the Greater Boise Auditorium District. We further do hereby certify at the duly scheduled and noticed meeting of the Board of Directors of the district held on Thursday, September 22nd, 2022. The following resolutions were duly adopted by the Board of Directors as follows. Motion was made by Mr. Erkins to appoint Clearwater Advisors LLC as the investment advisors for the investment policy adopted in October 2011. We have to make these motions?
You
So
are
I need to
making
make
the
it now.
motion.
You just made.
Perfect, I just made a motion.
Now we
Okay.
want a second.
Was that the motion?
Yes, there is,
I'm making a motion to appoint Clearwater Advisors LLC as the investment advisor per the investment policy adopted in October of 2011.
And
All right.
the custodian.
Not yet, but well, I guess I can do both at the same time.
Okay, sure you can.
All right, and making the motion to appoint Charles Schwab as the custodian per the investment policy adopted in October of 2011.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
thank you.
Aye.
Motion's approved, so that will allow us to update the investment policy and hire Clearwater Advisors and move forward with getting them on board. Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, Anne Marie, your other,
And that is,
that's it? That's it? Okay, do we have any questions regarding the monthly activity and finance report? Okay, seeing none, I make a motion to, or I entertain a motion to. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
I'm sorry.
We're just approving the monthly and activity financial report.
Oh, aye.
Thanks, aye. Okay. Report is approved. On to other business. Item A, strategic plan. Connie and team have put together a summary of the strategic plan with an update from our meeting. We took, Hi, we can get you a copy of this, and any other board members who are not here, we can get a copy of this. She really just kind of highlighted,
Okay,
captured everything that we discussed. And really gave us some framework to moving forward with identifying some of the tasks that we wanted to address.
Madam Chair, you might
Yes.
mention as well that Kristen and I both did have a chance to review this, make some noted changes. Mostly it was just clarification on titles and that sort of thing. There was nothing material that got changed within the document, but it was just, again, making sure titles were right, that sort of thing. But we did have a chance to review it and have some feedback with Connie, and so this is the final.
And I would like to thank them. I think they did a great job of facilitating and putting this together so that we can use it as a framework moving forward. So I don't think we need to take it's really just, there is the report.
It's accepting.
Should we vote to accept it or?
Okay, I don't think they have to do that, right?
No.
Okay. So this is, kind of stands as our current strategic plan. And as I mentioned, Ty will get you a copy.
Yep.
Okay, moving forward onto Idaho Competitive Aquatics, Ryan and team.
Thanks, guys. I'm losing my voice a little bit, so if my voice cracks, then you can take a journey back to junior high with me. And hopefully you'll be able to hear me okay. Wanted to bring our team just because we've been so active the last couple months, and I know you've had a chance to meet Nick since Nick and I have been here. As best we could every month for the last couple of years. I know you've met Jeff, wanted to introduce Josh Worthington, Josh with Idaho Trust as their investment guy, and Josh is a member of our foundation board. And earlier, Jim Bird was here, and Jim's also a member of the foundation board. So they've really been pivotal as we kind of work through the, our sponsorship activities and fundraising with various corporations and individuals. And just wanted to make sure that you guys can put some faces to the names that we often refer to. I've got a few, we'll go through some quick updates. I'm going to make that part quick just simply because we've got a gentleman named Stu Isaac on the line. Stu is head of what's called the Isaac Sports Group. And Stu is what's really helped perfect our financial model and helped us through some other obstacles. I know when we initially worked with you guys used a company called CSL to do kind of that peer review, and Stu does essentially a lot of the same work, but very, very specifically to aquatic centers. And so he's been instrumental as we kind of work through our financials and our programming and our economic impact numbers, everything else. And so we wanted to give him a chance to kind of give a little bit of presentation to you guys, give you guys a backdrop, kind of see what's on the other side of the rainbow as we finish this project, because I think it's important for you guys to see what you're investing in, obviously. Timeline wise, as Pat kind of mentioned earlier, everything's really looking pretty good. We're still on target for March 1st. Nick met with CM Company on Tuesday, and as of now, everything is still slated to be done. Essentially, what happened is the facility itself be done mid-February, and then it's a 2-week time frame for the water has to be in there for 2 weeks. We've got to make sure the chemicals work for 2 weeks, got to make sure the occupancy permits and everything go through, and so then March 1st kind of ends up being our opening date. So everything is slated at this point to be completed by mid-February and then opening March 1st. If you haven't had a chance to be out there, that sprung structure is on target for completion. We'll have a couple pictures here. Pool has been excavated. Looks pretty cool when you're down there. They started some underground plumbing, and they're going to get started on that roof installation here in a few weeks. So a few pictures for you. West End, they're going to start filling in that west end, which is the side opposite of Finley Avenue. You can see they've kind of put the center panel in, then they'll drop down some sides. They'll essentially plumb the HVAC input. The HVAC input will come into that side of that building. And so that end is expected to be done here in the next probably 7 to 10 days, I think. I'm not sure how long it'll take them to do that with the plumbing and the HVAC, but that's kind of the next piece of the sprung. And then the sprung piece is kind of done until the facility gets more closely finalized, because they're using the open east end as the access in and out of the facility. Bottom right there is essentially we're looking at the excavated pools. You can start to see some of the plumbing that's being laid down underground. All that stuff will fit essentially underneath the two pools. The picture on the right, you can kind of see again, I'm actually standing down at the bottom of the pool. You can see those plumbing lines running. At this point, it's west towards the west end. And a couple last shots here. This one on the top left. I'm sitting at the bottom of the competition pool, so it's a 2 meter deep pool, so roughly 7-8 feet below what would be ground level. Once they relay the plumbing, then they'll put the cement pad down and start the process with installing the actual marble pool. The building itself, I mean, there's 21 panels and all those panels stretched. Looks great. It's a nice visual out there.
What happened last night, though?
So what we want to do is, we always talk about progress, a few other things. We wanted to give you some financial updates. We wanted to, again, we'll introduce Stu Isaac. We'll go through some of that economic impact stuff. We'll give you some operations stuff, and then we'll kind of talk about where we're at from a capital funding standpoint. So with that, I want to introduce Stu Isaac, Isaac Sports Group. There's Stu. Stu is vice president of Speedo for, I'm not sure how many years, but it was a lot. And stepped away from that to do more of this private consulting work, and he's based out of the Michigan area. So I'm going to let Stu talk for a little bit, and again, just kind of focusing in on some of the financial information, some of the programming updates and economic impact stuff. And I'm sure Stu can talk endlessly, but mostly if you guys have questions, that we want you guys to give you guys an opportunity to ask Stu some questions as well.
Thank you, Ryan, and it's a pleasure to be with you today. And I do not intend to talk endlessly, don't worry. One of our roles were focused on several key areas. One was to really take the event schedule, the preliminary event schedule that was developed by the Aquatic Center, and fine tune it with more of a very specific analysis of it, much the way you analyze your heads and beds and your economic impact calculations, because our goal was to really take a swimming specific look at this, drawing on data from USA Swimming. What we did was we went through and developed, in conjunction with all the stakeholders that will be hosting events in this facility, and focus on the number of competitors, the ratios of non-competitive attendees that come with them, families, coaches, others, parents. Take a look at the overnight percentages, what percentage of the people coming to this event will be day trippers and what will be overnight. And then take a look at that and run out the numbers based on, and we actually used an ADR that's very close to what you're working with, in the low 150s. And I'm glad to hear that there's upward pressure there. But and give us a real sense of the annual projections for year 2. So looking at the event model that we developed with the Aquatic Center team, we're looking at over 16,000 hotel room nights per year and generating hotel revenue of approximately, just the room revenue alone, of 2.5 million. When we take a look at data from other comparable swimming meets, data collected by USA Swimming, data collected in our research, we're looking at an overall direct spend annually, well, in year 2 of 7.3 million. And the overall, as that money is respent, an overall economic impact of 13.6 million. So we feel like this is a little bit more robust than some of the initial projections when we actually look at the detail of number of competitors, ratio of overnight guests. So we were very happy to see that. One of the next steps, I think, is to take this information and again, circle back with you and make sure we're using the latest and greatest in terms of the numbers, factoring in escalation. I enjoyed taking a look at some of your financials because some of our peak months are November, December, January, February, some of your slower months. We also have a highest usage in also mid-May to late July. August is obviously a very busy month for you, but that's a pretty slow month except for a single end of the year championship. So the overlay of our monthly ratios I think work well with your occupancy downturn. So I think the two occupancy curves will work well layered on top of each other. So that's just an initial assessment. It's about 65,000 actual day visitors over the course of a day and overnight visitors over the course of a year. So again, pretty robust model for this aquatic center. One thing that I think is very important, and it's where you have an advantage in this facility, is that you usually have a much slower ramp up in year one than we're going to be seeing with the Idaho Aquatic Center, because with the connections and the network that the leadership of the Aquatic Center have, they already have two of USA Swimming's prime regional events that are committed to the facility in year one. So there'll be much less of a year one ramp up to those numbers I quoted for you too. So that's really, really important. I wanted to stop there and see if there are any questions on some of these economic impact numbers and how we've approached it. Anybody has questions, or Ryan, you want to add anything to that?
How many events does the 16,000 room nights represent?
It represents a total of over 50 event days per year of full event days, and really about 60 if I count an event day that may have only half of an event day. It gets us, and I can give you those exact numbers because I have it right here at my fingertips. So we're looking at of those total number of event days of about 50, that makes up about 35 events. Some range from half a day to a day, some are 5-day events. In addition to that, we also have 23 days of training camps and clinics. A training camp where an organization or team would come in, or multiple teams, and train for 3 to 4 days or in a holiday or a long weekend. And then clinics, which are single day events. There's also 8 days of high school swim meets, often multiple meets per day. Well, we really didn't factor that into the economic impact. I mean, those aren't really driving overnight guests and significant spending, but those are above and beyond the dates we included. We did not include one-offs or bid events that would not likely to happen annually. We really are only counting events that are anniversary. So, because we didn't want to inflate the numbers with single year one-offs, we may host once every 5 years.
So what do you consider an event for the event days?
The majority of the event days are for USA Swimming meets or a championship type meets, master meets, where competition may start at 9 in the morning and end at 9 o'clock at night. Often there's multiple sessions. Certain age groups would be in the morning, another age group in the afternoon. Sometimes it's preliminaries in the morning, finals at night. So these are full days. Often these, let's say a 2.5 or 3.5 day meet on a weekend, may start with some preliminary events or long distance events on Friday evening. And then we have a full program for Saturday and Sunday. Sometimes that goes back and starts on Wednesday evening, and we have a full days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The events that are already scheduled for the meet for the facility in year one are a zone meet, which is 4.5 days, and I think a sectional, which is, and Ryan, you can help me with that. I think we have that in at 3.5 days.
I think it's 4 actually. Full.
Okay, 4. So 4 full days. Yeah. So.
When you use the $150 ADR, do people that come to these events, do they get discounted room nights like our conventions, or is that going to be pretty accurate?
Nick can probably answer that. I know that they've talked with the Spring Hill Suites on Park Center, because Lisa actually reached out to me. So I know they've talked to Spring Hill. I don't know what other hotels they've talked to, but I know they're using CVB as a housing bureau.
We did. We used Lucas at CVB to put together a booking website for both the sectionals meet in July as well as the age group meet in August. We are working with, I believe, 17 hotels, all within a 15-minute ride of the pool facility. Each hotel contacted us, let us know how many rooms they would block off. They are courtesy blocks, so the teams visiting contact those hotels. But Lucas got us very good deals on the hotels. And we signed the agreements to block those rooms off, and teams are already starting to call and book those hotels in. But CVB handled all of that for us and was great about it.
And Chase, I think the lowest rate I think I remember on that list was maybe 139, all the way up to probably 189. I think there were some hotels that bid at much higher numbers, upper 200s, lower 300s, and we didn't grab those as part of those blocks. Obviously, those hotels would be available for teams if they call directly, but in terms of the blocks done through the CVB, they're all kind of between that 139 and 189 range.
What we find with USA Swimming nationally and regionally is that it's a pretty strong economic demographic, and they spend well on traveling. A little better than many of the youth sports that we find when we do this analysis.
And I can only, speak to where we've traveled in the last year, of course, but having a few trips to Phoenix and trips to Portland, down to Sacramento, Austin, College Station, I think the cheapest hotel we found in a swim meet in the last 12 months was probably closer to $250 a night. Those are obviously other locations, but that's kind of what people are accustomed to paying at this point, is that $250 a night range.
One of the other main components of the work we've been doing in conjunction with the Aquatic Center folks is really taking a look at a wider breadth of programming. We really have the competitive side of the programming locked in with the existing clubs and high schools that will be using the facility. But there's a big chunk of time during the day that we really have to make use of. So we have gone in and really focused on what kind of community type programming can be offered during that time. What are the in-house programming? So things that the Aquatic Center, Idaho Aquatics, can actually be running themselves, but also the outsourced programming, where it's an outside group coming in to rent space and provide programming. Huge range of these kind of programs, but what we tried to do was develop a schedule. And I'm going to share my screen real quickly and give you just an example of something we've been able to do with this. Hopefully you can see my screen with the Aquatic Center. And we took a look at what really was already developed, all the rental groups that will be using the Aquatic Center. Sawtooth Aquatics, Boise Swim Club, high school teams, Boise Water Polo. What we then did is take a look at the in-house programming that will be affiliated with Idaho Aquatics. And it ranges from open lap swims, which is really on a membership or drop-in basis, swim lessons, after-school programs, pre-team programs. You can see a lot of these different things, senior programming. But then we have outside program providers. That's where we often get aquatic lifestyle activities like scuba and kayak classes, paddleboard classes. We worked on a project in Big Sky, and we had fly fishing, indoor fly fishing clinics. And I know you have fly fishing schools in Boise. So also outside organizations, Scouts and Boys and Girls Club, but also senior living centers, daycare centers. All these things can be programming. And then what we did was, and we do this happens to be an example of the school year when the high school teams are in session. So what we do is we show the lanes available in the big pool, and then the warm pool where we're offering aquatic fitness, special needs, aquatic therapy, swim lessons. You can see we've got homeschool programming, senior programming. And then we take a look at times the high school teams are in there, times that the darker blue, the club teams are in there, water polo is in there, special needs programs, deep water fitness. So what we've done is we've taken this, and again, knowing that some of these programs will ramp up in year 2, and we worked with the Idaho Aquatics folks to develop the financial model around these, the outside groups, what they'd be paying for rent, what kind of revenue we can generate by in-house programming, And we're taking a look at further breaking down the financial analysis and P&L statements of the Aquatic Center and focusing on specific programs and the specific expenses, including instructors, cost of operation of that program. So we can really take a look and evaluate the return on investment or profit margin, if you will, for specific programs. So using this, again, 8 months before opening or 6 months before opening now, this may seem like a lot of detail, but it's really critical, not only in developing the program model, but supporting the financial analysis in terms of staffing, revenue generation, the space available to run these programs. So that's a very important part of this that we're fleshing out, because really it's in the next couple of months that this programming model really comes to fruition in terms of getting ready to launch programming and market the facility months before it will actually open. So I wanted to give you an idea of how we really help work with them and approach these kind of financial aspects. That all then gets translated in the updates and financial pro forma that Ryan and his team have been working to develop this. I actually came in at the end of August for my first time in Boise in about 40 years. So, and spent 3 days, actually 3.5 days working with the team. So it was really a productive visit, and I appreciate it because you had great weather while I was there. And if I filled out a form talking about my satisfaction survey, you would have gotten those same 5.0 numbers you're getting from a lot of your other guests and visitors. But that's really our role. And then any other support, probably the third element is assisting in developing those additional sponsor and donor opportunities and helping put together packets. We're getting ready for a prospective presentation with a potential sponsor next week. So this is how we will continue to stay involved in the project leading up to it. So if you have any other questions for me, I'll be glad to entertain them and try to give you an answer.
So you guys are taking the suggestions on programming and working to fill in those holes?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's, you have this idea of what is going to fit into this pool, and you sketch out in your mind, but what Stu is able to do is say, let's actually sketch this out. So you see, here's all your lanes, and here's how you fit your teams and everything else. And then you kind of realize that there are spaces to fill and opportunity, right? Opportunities that we hadn't considered before. That's the big piece. Is just like he had kind of highlighted some of these other programs that you don't always think about it. But it's a great spot to do less and bring more people out. So,
And Ryan, you used the word opportunities. I really like that because often in a feasibility study, we're asked to do a needs analysis. Needs analysis identifies things in aquatics or sport or whatever activity you're analyzing that people already have and they just don't have enough space to do it or enough time, or they're, have more numbers than they can support. But we take a look at opportunities too. There are a lot of trends in aquatic, whether it's aquatic fitness, whether it's senior programming, whether it's recreation and leisure programming in aquatics that aren't even available in Boise. So what we're trying to do is bring new trends, best practices from around the country that not only can enhance existing programs, but can offer new programs that are not currently available in Boise. And that's why I'm so glad, Ryan, to hear you use the term opportunities, because it's not just meeting existing needs and projected future needs of existing programs. It's creating new opportunities that hopefully reach a much wider breadth of the overall residents of the area.
So how are you gonna go about filling and kind of attracting some of those?
well, as I think as Stu pointed out, right, we can't just flip a switch and have everything on, right? It's certainly something that you've got to get traction in your operations and know that you've got these, like, so these opportunities are there. So I think these are things that are going to have to ramp up. But as we start to kind of learn how this facility operates and learn where those available spaces are, it's just a matter of reaching out to those groups. There are fly fishing groups out there, right? Keep harping on that example, but those people and saying, hey, we can have these classes in the middle of winter. Let's use our facility. Or it's taking time to reach out to senior centers and say, hey, let's find a way to bus your residents to our facility and find a way for them to do physical therapy or whatever the case may be, right? All of these things are it's a learning curve for us too, to say the least, but now that we see how these things can chart and the value of it from a revenue standpoint and just simply from a facility use standpoint in the community, I mean, it's vitally important. So it's developed a better roadmap for us.
And a lot of these unique programs that we offered here will draw from outside Boise. It'll really be a regional asset because many of these things are not available elsewhere. And we find that unique aquatic centers that can offer these unique programs do have a strong regional draw.
What does year two's pro forma look like for revenue if you were able to do kind of what was suggested up there on the screen? Do you have pricing models figured out yet or still working through it?
We do, and I've got a summary page that I can put up here once we have Stu kind of disappear from the screen. Taking all of these concepts, let's see, these are just some of the spreadsheets. You obviously can't see the numbers very well, but those are the items that Stu was kind of speaking about in terms of the economic impact. So here's our updated operating numbers that start to show how we've built in some of these additional revenue streams. You can really start to see a pretty good jump from year one to year two, almost a $300,000 jump in revenue items, and then continuing to grow as you go into year, 3, 4, and 5. The expense side obviously carries with that. What's that mean from, maintenance and chemical and utility expenses as you go, but those expenses obviously grow with those same revenue streams. So over time, we're seeing, the ability to support more programs, the ability to support the debt service that we've always talked about, want to talk about a little bit today as well. And it's certainly provided a lot more comfort for us in terms of what our model looks like and our ability to service everything that we've told you we can do. And certainly this is just our summary sheet, and we're more than happy to share all the details with you. We've obviously been willing to provide all that information to you guys in the past, and if you guys want to see more details, then we have it. So we can vary down, we can narrow down into each of these specific years and into the specific revenue lines and expense lines, everything else. So there's a lot of data that sits behind this summary sheet.
Simple's good.
Simple's good.
And I'll tell you what, it's a luxury for me that when we normally do these kind of financial analysis to have somebody leading the project who's actually an accountant. So it made my job a lot easier. Let me tell you that.
Well, I'll say a couple of counts, right? I'm happy to be a CPA. Jeff's a CPA. Gosh, it's, investment style trust. We've got a pretty healthy financial team that's really been pivotal for us to keep everything moving forward. So. Any other questions you guys might have for Stu? Okay. So update on the financial side. So let's hear. So you guys are aware that we've got a package out there from we've been working through with ICCU. It's kind of waiting in the wings. We've spent a considerable amount of time in the last couple of months with another institution. Had an opportunity to actually have Stu meet with them as well in person when he was in town. Really cultivate that relationship to the point where we met with them actually again this morning and expecting to finalize a deal in the next couple of days that will be a better finance package and provide more money to the table. So we're looking at, instead of 5.1 in financing, 7 in financing, which leaves us really close to finishing everything that we need. So if that package gets finalized, and we're about $800,000 from getting everything queued up to finish the project, and more flexibility with the new institution. So we don't have to scratch and claw for the 800 in order to get the financing. It's more of we're ready to roll in 45 to 60 days. You have access to the cash, and you guys continue to work on that balance. And as Stu said, we've got some positive meetings set up for the next week or two. We've got one set up for next week, another set up for the week after that. Hopefully come to help kind of balance out that final stretch that we need. So I'm happy to say that we don't expect or intend to come back and ask for more money from you guys, which is good. Let's see what else. timing wise, my concern, of course, is timing on how all this stuff fits together. As Emery will attest, we've got large invoices coming in, and that $7 million is coming to a close real quick. So we've got, we're paying I always get the months real, we're paying the August invoice now. We'll get the September invoice, it'll be due the end of October. I anticipate that will pretty much absorb the 7. We will, assuming we get this institution to finalize the process, then funds should be available for us for that next stretch. Our concern, of course, is making sure that there's a lag there and we don't want to stop this process, of course, right? So we're trying to get that final answer from the bank to make sure that we don't have any sort of lag or have to call timeout, put a pause on the project for 2 or 3 weeks, whatever the case may be. I think we all agree that's not a good idea. 2 or 3 weeks tends to turn into 2 or 3 months and puts us way behind schedule and starts to ruin the ability to perform on some of these events as we get into 2023. I think one of the things that we wanted to, broach with you guys is really kind of helping us create a backstop. Again, not using more money per se, but if it's an advance and we have to repay from the first draw, something of that nature, just to make sure that we don't have to pause this project. Again, based on the timeline, I don't think that's going to be an issue, and we're going to know more affirmatively in the next, probably early next week. But I at least wanted to put that subject out to you guys now, so that if the time comes and we're not quite ready to be able to take that draw from the new bank, that you guys might be able to provide a backstop, and then as soon as the draw is available, then it repays that advance. So I want to at least put that out there and have that discussion or answer questions about what that might look like. Kristen's contemplating.
Not sure what you're asking. You're asking for us to pay above and beyond the 7 million in UPS.
Yeah, I want to be clear that we do not want to add anything additional to the lease. We do not want to go above the 7. The lease stays there. It would simply be if there is a timing issue in which we've got to cover a pay up and then turn around and reimburse. Just trying to make sure that we don't have to push pause on this thing. And again, we're going to have a really much better idea of what this will look like in the next week or so when we finalize this with.
What's your rent payment to us monthly?
The 5%, so 350, or each, like right now, $7,500.
Okay, so that wouldn't really make a, because I was like, maybe delay a rent.
How much are you looking for, Brian?
I don't have a number because it's going to depend on what that pay app looks like. And again, I think it's more of just a timing issue than anything else. I think the last few pay apps obviously have been steeper than the first few. The first few were 500,000 or 600,000. The last one was 800,000. So they're not small at this point, unfortunately. And again, not seeking additional funds, just making sure that I don't want to have, my issue is I can't let CM continue forward if I don't have 100% certainty I can pay that bill. And that's the timing with the bank, and just trying to make sure that we can get that timing to work. So that's why I'm floating this out there, just to have that discussion. And,
I think we probably have to have special if that's possible, or what would be involved in that. I mean,
yeah.
Certainly wouldn't be my first inclination to do so.
Food for thought.
Food for thought. You threw it out there. Let's chew on it for a little bit. How are your fundraising?
Fundraising going well. I mean, like I said, we've had some success. We've had a couple of meetings we've had the last few weeks have yielded results. I mean, I always wish the checks had more zeros at the end of them, but we're happy with every check that we get, of course, and we've had some really good donations that have come in, and we have some really good meetings established or applications in on some positive. Again, I don't want to make it public, obviously, until we have those conversations, but we feel good with the prospects that we have in front of us over the course of the next couple of weeks. So, I'd be lying to you if I told you that I thought this capital campaign was easier than I thought, because it's not. It's been a lot harder than expected, and I would think the timing of of where we're at in the market and everything else has made it even more difficult. So it's definitely been a slower process than we anticipated, to say the least. And, increase of cost and everything is one thing, but just, the ability to raise that capital has been a slower slog than we anticipated for sure. But it's inching along and we're finding success. It's just slower success.
And it sounds like you're using him to consult with some on that
Yes,
strategy as well, right?
absolutely. So Stu's got a lot of experience in building those, not sure what the right word is, but it's, call it a packet of information. You can go, a pitch book, if you will, to when we go sit in front of these people and really what type of information is useful to a corporation or person that helps them see the project for its importance and what connects with them on an individual and corporate level. So he's helping us develop those tools and those pitch books. Go out.
Are you willing to share any of the feedback on why people are not investing or?
Well, the last couple that I've had, again, I've been successful in getting a check. But I think the concern for them has just been where the market's at. In all honesty, I want to protect my cash right now. And in both instances, it's come back to me in 12 months. Let's talk again in 12 months and see where everything's at. But right now I want to tuck this away under my mattress or in my, my bank account. Let's see what this market does over the course of the next couple of months. So that has not been an uncommon response. I've yet to really get a response and say, we don't like the project. It's usually, this is a great project. We understand the value. We understand the need. It's just the timing's really difficult right now. So let us help you a little bit. Let's talk again in 12 months, see if we can help you more type of deal. So one more financial item to talk to you about. And this is not our current rent, but this is the current bank institution where we're working with. Based on those numbers, I'm going to go backwards to this real quick. Let's look at that projection. So year one, you'll see that negative cash flow. And you'll see that occupancy expense up there of 526. That includes rent to the auditorium district of $350,000. 5% is $7 million. What the institution has asked is if the auditorium district would be willing, again, not forgive, but defer the first year rent in order to make sure the cash flow is supportive of the debt service. My thought process was to obviously throw that out, but also suggest that because the lease allows for a credit against our rent for the hotel taxes, simply allow those hotel taxes to continue to offset that deferral until it's gone. So again, the intent's not to forgive anything. We want to make sure that the district continues to get the 5% that we've all agreed upon, but simply allow that to push forward out of year one to make sure that the cash flow from a debt service standpoint is satisfactory to the bank. And again, just kind of it grew, and I think it paid off pretty quickly based on the rent reduction.
Is that an answer you need before you can solidify the financing of this institution number two?
I think before we sign on the dotted line, yes, I think they've indicated they'll commit to everything with that kind of caveat hanging out there. And I don't think it's a deal or no deal type of item, but I think it's a vitally important deal. I mean, the alternative for us, which isn't a bad one, is we just continue to fundraise and build in the additional capital that allows for that excess cash to be available in year one. I think the bank's just really looking for a little bit more certainty up front. So again, it's trying to push the timing of that first call rent payment in year 2, 3 without forgiving it at all. So.
And would you need an answer on that, I guess?
Well, I'll say sooner rather than later, but I think based on what the bank tells us the next few days, things are relatively quick. I don't know if that's a today thing for certainly. If it's something you guys wanted to discuss today, then obviously we'd be happy to continue that discussion. If you guys need time to think about that, since I'm throwing it on you at the last minute here, then I can continue to work with Pat, Mike, and the team and get a better idea what that would look like for you guys, obviously, as we.
Pat and Mike, have you seen this? Have you seen
Do it, Ryan, what would be the repayment term on the rent deferral?
So as you know, so what the lease allows for is the reduction of rent based on the hotel tax generation, right? So our thought process was to essentially not reduce our rent by that hotel tax until that first year is paid off. So knowing in year one that we've got two significant events. And then all subsequent events, obviously, the direct hotel tax would continue to pile that back until you guys have got your full 5%. That was my concept anyway, that seemed to.
So if they were supposed to offset rent by, I don't know, $20,000 a month or whatever, because they had a bunch of people staying in hotel rooms, instead of offsetting that later on in year two, that would just be applied towards the first year deferral,
So that's the thing
350.
with lease agreement, when do those credits take place? Is it end of year? Is it all in one lump sum at the end of the year?
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
It was, he gives me, I think
It's
there's
like
supposed to be a quarterly report.
It's not perfectly defined, other than we're supposed to try to calculate that on a quarterly basis, provide the information to the district and generate a credit against the obligation, lease
We
obligation.
intended to have it be as flexible as possible because we were not completely certain what the. Like, I think, Ryan, we effectively not, kind of more or less left it in the, sufficient to make the district happy in terms of what the information was, et cetera. I think it was that.
And that's why we've really, especially with these first two events, tried to work as close as we can with CVB, because we know they're going to be a great resource for helping us tabulate that information. We know there'll be people out that stay in rooms outside of the CVB's blocks. So we have to work with the teams in those hotels to get that information. But we'll formulate a report that will satisfy both parties for sure.
So you're looking to accelerate the credit from year one, from the two events?
I'm looking to take the rent obligation,
Starting what?
defer the rent,
January 1?
defer the payment of the rent in the first year.
Okay.
And repay that rent via all future hotel credits until it is satisfied.
I see, okay.
So Ryan, in the projections, do you have the hotel credits in the projections?
Yes, in this line, it is in there. I don't have it drawn out,
That's okay.
but yeah, so the hotel credits are included in those lines, and I don't have the rent deferral obviously in this line either. But you can see in year 2, 3, 4, and 5, you can see how year one, you see the total occupancy of 526. Again, that includes rent and other items, but you can see in later years that those numbers have dropped based on kind of our projection of rent of events that have come in. And so we've decreased the rent obligation of those. But there's also an increase in expenses. So I can give you a separate schedule that tells you what our expectation of that is. But I think the last sketch we had run through, it was roughly 125,000 per year in tax to offset. I don't think we ever dipped greater than that in order to just maintain our financials on a conservative basis.
So what happens in year 2 if you have to double up your rent? Or increase your rent? Because there's a margin of like 39,000. Will that then go negative too?
The cash flow could potentially go negative in year 2 based on that. Okay, so yes, the cash flow projection changed a little bit, but not in a substantial manner that's, concerned.
So a couple things. We don't have you listed as an action item on the agenda. We'd have to take action on this, I assume, correct?
Well, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
Without Jim and Jody here
Yeah.
to hear this,
I know, yeah.
and
There's multiple.
I don't know when their next availability is. I mean, I just don't. So I think Brian's gonna have to get his information together and then get it.
Maybe we can do like try to get a special
Well, that's the key word, is to try, but I mean, that would be the only other option, is to get the information to the board, do a special board meeting. I mean, we can do it via electronic. I mean, we can do it via Zoom. It's obviously a public meeting, but we can do it via Zoom as long as I'm here and we can centralize it.
Yeah, and again, apologize, this literally came in on my desk yesterday. So, and I contacted Pat, we had a brief conversation. He let me know that there was a couple board members that were missing. I knew that was more challenging. But obviously want to have the conversations with Jody and Jim both so they understand the issue. So whatever we need to do to kind of work through that, and obviously more than happy to do that, so.
You look like you're thinking.
Just if we, yeah, for anything we were to do, we want to effectively run it through the list, including providing any additional money, because it needs to be part of, however we phrase it, as part of the ownership. So whichever way it is we do it. You know, there are certain statutory and constitutional limitations on, you know, loaning money and doing other
Yeah.
things. But
Essentially, it would be a
If we-
loan, right?
if we, whatever it is we do, if we include it within amendments to the lease, then it works better. And the only other thing I was thinking is, again, if we were to do any of this, it'd be, you know, it would just be amendments to the lease, I think, which would reflect it, be pretty easy to reflect. And then we probably, I mean, the money's not particularly vital in terms of the interest, but we'd have to effectively tweak the rent payment so that effectively the 5% return would apply to the deferred amounts as well, which again is not going to be a particularly large amount, but just to have it all flow properly. But pretty easy to do. So I think it's doable should the board decide to do anything, and so doable legally and doable quickly with tweaks to the lease agreements.
I think the message to you is we need some time to
No, understood.
collect information and try to get the rest of the board together. So I think we'll just be in touch on what we can figure out with that.
No, that's great. I appreciate that we're making you drink from a fire hose at the last minute here. It's been fast and furious the last, week or so on this. It's a positive development, but we understand there's some things to work through. So I'll work with Pat based on information we get the next couple of days, and we'll coordinate anything we need to do and get information out.
And we'll just-
Any questions at all you guys have? That was a lot of information all at once.
Good luck fundraising.
Do you have any questions?
Thank you, guys. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Anne Marie, back over to you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
See you guys.
We spent the first hour, the work study, going through the budget for 2023. So, hi, I just wanted to, I think this is more directed at you because Kristen and Chase have gone through it. Jody went through a presentation with the finance committee. So with the budget that we're presenting this year, oh, go ahead.
Thanks, Anne Marie.
Oh, you're welcome.
I have this.
So with the budget that we're presenting this year, we're presenting about 9.7 million in hotel tax revenues and 8.7 million in Boise Center revenues. one of the, as we went through the process, one of the questions that came out was our gross profit margin is declining. And when we started looking at some of our statistics, it became apparent that the conventions, the more conventions we book, the lower our gross margin. Because we have a lower gross margin in our conventions. So we looked at it and visited with the finance committee and Chase and are asking for the support to slow down or reduce the number of conventions so that we can take business that might provide more profitability. The conventions get some significant discounts because of room rental and food and beverage, where the smaller conventions and the local events don't qualify for those discounts. So that's the first major piece, I think, of the budget. Do you have anything to add, Pat?
No, hi, it's really just, what we're doing is letting you know as the board that we're gonna make a philosophical change, and it'll be a little more formalized in a narrative at the budget meeting or the budget approval for next month. But it's just a little
Right.
bit, it's just a shift. And so for instance, we might be,
Let me ask you a question.
sure,
Anne Marie, when you do the budget and go through the gross profit, do you add in the room night revenue that we make on the conventions that come in? We should be able to track where they're staying.
We included
No?
on the district side, which is in the tax revenues. So the center fund, so to speak, doesn't get the benefit of the tax revenue. It's the general fund that gets the benefit of the tax revenue.
Hmm.
So it is
Okay.
included in the combined budget, but it's not in necessarily the Boise Center Fund.
All right, thanks.
Okay, you're welcome. So when we go through and then we have, and this may change a little bit based on the discussion from ICA, because I had that we would be still funding some of their construction next year. So there'll be some changes in this, but at the end of the day, when we get done with our budget, basically we're at a break even on the cash. Because of we have some additional expenses that have occurred in the Boise Center. Some of those our labor has increased by about 18%. And part of that is we did a pay increase in 2022. And we also have built into the budget another pay increase for 2023 in the event we have to raise wages to continue to get staff. One of the things this year, when normally our discounts on the conventions runs around $200,000, and this year it's forecasted, or in 23, to be about 600,000. So there's about $400,000 in reduced revenue because of the discounts. Also, some of the funding for the CVB is increasing, as it does a little bit every year. And we've got more money in marketing, in sponsorships and media, which is also another item that is impacting the bottom line. We know that we can't continue, taking 100% of the tax revenues. So what we'd like to do is, because of the way the conventions are contracted over 2 and 3 years, it's going to take some time for those contracts for us to lower the convention numbers so that our gross margin can improve.
so hi, basically,
Madam Chair. I'm sorry.
Go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
well, hi,
The question I had, Yeah,
I just wanted to cut to the chase for you that basically we're not losing money next year. We may not make a lot.
no, what I was gonna say was, as you were talking about some of the philosophical approaches that you have to take to this, one of the reasons we even exist is to bring in convention business to help the local economy. So we have to take that, we must take that into consideration as well when you talk about reducing the number of conventions.
Absolutely, Hy, and we've considered that. So I don't want it to make it sound like we're going from 65 conventions to 30. That's absolutely not the case. What we're probably looking at is going from 65 to like 60 or 58. Revenue manage some of the groups that don't bring anything to Boise Center and have minimal impact on the room tax. The hoteliers
Right.
right now really are restricting our ability to book bigger conventions because they really, quite frankly, would rather have the leisure transient rooms. So we're definitely considering the relationships with the community, and again, very cognizant of making sure we're not going to jeopardize those relationships. The impact really would be almost not negotiable or negligible from a hotel perspective. The difference really will be at Boise Center.
Gotcha. Are hotels still at capacity? Are they still doing well?
Yes, sir. In fact, I got the STAR report on August. Again, everything lags a month, but, in our reporting, but, June was down 2,000 room nights. July was down like 4,000 room nights. We really thought August would be down, but in fact, it's back up 2,000 room nights. And the average rate in June was 162, July was 153, and August is 156. Room revenue in August was $2 million over prior year. So we're going to do $1 million. Well, my estimate is we'll do about $1.15 million in room tax revenue, which is about $100,000 more than last year. So we continue to break records, which is why when you came online and we were talking room tax revenue, that's where the room taxes are, or the room tax revenue is going, probably excess of $9 million this year.
Great. Thank you.
We've broken records 8 to 9 months.
Well, and that really is the presentation of the budget. Hy, is just letting the board know that we're looking at a budget that will not show any cash going into the coffers for this next year. We are working on ways to improve the gross margin so that we don't continue to take 100% of the tax revenues. And that's just going to take some time as we change our product mix.
And Hy, you've worked with us a long time, so our approach to budgeting, is very conservative. And
Oh, yeah.
even though we've set some lofty goals, my gut check tells me that we'll be able to manage to the point that, again, based on.
You have every year since I've known you.
Well,
So I think it's, yeah.
One
And
of
this is before you had a staff.
Another change we have made, Hy, is Pat has always budgeted revenues low and expenses high, or not just Pat.
Right.
Sorry. And the reason we've done that is to make it so that the transfers from the Boise Center are at their highest level, so that the district doesn't get caught with a cash demand from the center that they weren't expecting.
Right.
Well, but part of that doesn't give our management team this best budget to manage by. So to fix that, what we did in this budget is we budgeted revenues still aggressively, but not as low as maybe they had been done in the past. And we tried to get expenses a little closer as well. Now, so that the district doesn't get a surprise, we've added 10% to the operating transfers. So what that means,
Yeah, go ahead.
so what that really means to you is that next year, as we go through the budget, we're probably gonna see some negative variances where we haven't in the past. But as long as we're.
Let me ask you another philosophical question. No, it's more of a financial question. Is there any formula, or is it possible for the center to break even?
You know, Hi, in today's.
Yeah, I guess that's your sentence.
Well, if you remember, Hi, when Stephanie was on the board and we realigned two key expense areas, one being capital and the other, the CBB marketing. It used to be that those two line items, which was worth back in the day about $3 million, that was on the center, or that was on the district side of the ledger. And we realigned all those expenses, which was legit because they're all directly related to Boise Center, not the district. That put us in a position where right away you got a $3 million hit to Boise Center that to answer your question, no. I mean, when we made those, when we made that transfer of those expense lines, it can't happen.
Yeah, go ahead.
That's why we.
Like the telephone game.
Well, I guess, I mean, it's if you look at the combined financials, you know, traditionally, we have cash at the, cash flow at the bottom. And this year with the additional expenses that we have in the budget and the way we've budgeted, we're gonna be zero or at positive. We're not gonna be negative, but we're at least on the budget side, not showing the cash that we would normally show. We think it will be there at the end of the year, but on a budgetary side, we don't want to make a promise we can't live up to.
That's good. Well, thanks.
Any further questions, Hi?
No.
We don't need to take action on this now. That'll be,
So the next step, Hi, is we will bring the budget to the board next month for approval, so that we can get the lease renewed on Boise Center East by November 1st.
Okay,
Any questions, or
thanks.
feel free to reach out and give me a call sometime between now and the next board meeting.
Let me ask you my standard question. How much money do we have in the bank?
22 million.
22?
Yes, sir.
Fluctuates, not very much though.
Yeah, it's not fluctuating much, no. I mean, it should go up here in the next 3 months with room tax revenues coming in at record levels. So yeah,
Yeah.
it could grow between now and the end of the year. How much is sort of a roll of the dice at this point, but it should be positive.
Depending on what we do. in the-
Well,
Yeah,
we still got 20 million.
I think you got a couple million still.
Sorry, 22 million.
It's the gift that keeps on giving.
all right, and Anna.
I'm done, Madam Chair.
All right, thanks, Hi. And we've already covered policy approval, correct? So there's no other items on our agenda today. I motion to adjourn, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? All in favor, adjourn. We're done.
Thanks.